Dr. Elena Vasquez floated through the observation deck of the research station, watching the swirling clouds of Velcara Prime spin below. The massive gas giant painted everything in shades of orange and purple light. She had been studying the strange creatures that lived in those clouds for 3 years now. The work was peaceful and important. The station called Harmony's Light was home to beings from 12 different worlds. Elena shared her workspace with Kira, one of the whisper folk whose thin gray body moved like smoke in the low-gravity sections. There was also Resonant Prime Harmony, a tall crystal being who spoke in musical tones that made the walls vibrate. In the gardens, 3 Verdani tended to the plants they needed for food, their green skin soaking up the artificial sunlight. Elena checked the daily reports on her tablet. The atmospheric readings were normal. The research samples were growing. Well, in the lab, everything was exactly as it should be on a quiet Tuesday morning in the outer systems. That peace ended when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the station as Elena rushed to the command center. The other researchers were already there, their different voices mixing in panic. Kira's whispered words blended with Harmony's musical tones and the clicking sounds of the insect-like Chitara crew members. "What is happening?" Elena asked as she reached the main display. Dr. Marcus Webb, the station commander, pointed at the screen with a shaking hand. Long-range sensors picked up multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Big ones. They're heading straight for us. Elena stared at the display. 12 massive ships moved in formation toward their small research station. The computer identified them as Scaleth Empire vessels. Elena had heard stories about the Scaleth. They were conquerors who took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. "How long until they reach us?" Elena asked. 4 hours, Webb replied. "Maybe less if they increase speed." The Scaleth Empire was known throughout the galaxy for their cruelty. Their gray-skinned warriors conquered peaceful worlds and enslaved entire populations. They had no interest in science or cooperation. They only understood power and fear. Elena looked around the command center at her friends and colleagues. None of them were fighters. The Whisper folk could barely lift their own weight in normal gravity. The Resonants were peaceful beings who solved problems through harmony and discussion. The Verdani had never seen war in their entire species' history. "We need to send a distress signal," Elena said. "The Galactic Cooperative will help us." Webb nodded and moved to the communications station. His fingers worked quickly across the controls as he activated the emergency beacon. The signal would travel faster than light to the nearest cooperative fleet. Help would come. It always did when peaceful beings called for aid. "Message sent," Webb announced. "The nearest cooperative fleet is in the Andara system. They should receive our signal in 20 minutes. Elena felt some relief. The Galactic Cooperative had kept peace in this part of the galaxy for over 200 years. Their ships were staffed by diplomats and peacekeepers from dozens of worlds. They would negotiate with the Scaleth. They would offer trade agreements or resources in exchange for leaving the research station alone. 3 hours passed slowly. The research team watched the Scaleth fleet grow larger on their screens. The alien ships were massive and dark, built to look frightening. Weapon ports lined their hulls like angry eyes. Each ship was 10 times larger than their small research station. Then the Scaleth sent their message. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the lead Scaleth ship. A tall gray figure with 4 arms and glowing red eyes stared at them. His voice was deep and harsh when he spoke. "Small creatures of the research station, I am Commander Thex of the Scaleth Empire. You will prepare to surrender your vessel and all research data to us. You have 6 hours to comply." Elena stepped forward. "Commander Thex, we are peaceful researchers. We have no weapons or military value. We study atmospheric life forms for scientific purposes." Thex laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Your atmospheric data can be used to create biological weapons. Your research station sits in a strategic position. You will surrender, or you will be destroyed." These are your only choices." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Webb checked the communications panel again. Still no response from the cooperative fleet. They should have received our signal by now. Elena felt cold fear growing in her chest. The cooperative had never failed to respond before. Their peacekeepers were probably already on their way, but would they arrive in time? The research team spent the next 2 hours preparing. They backed up their research data and sent copies to other stations. They recorded messages for their families. The Verdani gathered in their garden to sing their traditional songs of farewell. Harmony stood in the center of the station, filling the corridors with beautiful crystal music that helped calm everyone's fears. Elena found herself in her lab, looking at the samples she had collected from Velcara Prime's atmosphere. Tiny, floating creatures that glowed with their own light. They were completely harmless and beautiful. The idea that someone would use her research to create weapons made her feel sick. "Dr. Elena," Kira whispered as she floated into the lab, "the long-range sensors are detecting something new." Elena followed Kira back to the command center. Webb was staring at the sensor display with confusion on his face. "What is it?" Elena asked. "Multiple FTL signatures approaching our position," Webb said. "But they're not coming from the direction of the cooperative fleet. These are coming from the edge of unknown space." Elena looked at the energy patterns on the screen. She had seen hundreds of different ship signatures over the years. These were unlike anything in the computer databases. The energy readings were strange and powerful. "How many ships?" Elena asked. "5 contacts," Webb replied. "Much smaller than the Scaleth. Fleet, but moving very fast. They should arrive in about 30 minutes. Could they be more Scaleth ships?" Elena wondered. Webb shook his head. "No, the energy signatures are completely different. These are definitely not Scaleth vessels." Elena felt a small spark of hope. Maybe these were cooperative ships using new technology. Maybe they were traders or explorers who had heard their distress signal. Anyone would be better than facing the Scaleth alone. 20 minutes passed. The unknown ships grew closer. Their energy readings became more detailed on the sensors. Webb frowned as he studied the data. "These readings don't match any known species in our databases," Webb said. "The power output is enormous for ships of their size, and look at these weapon signatures." Elena looked at the screen. The unknown ships carried weapons unlike anything she had ever seen. Not the massive energy cannons favored by most galactic civilizations, but hundreds of smaller systems that seemed designed for precision rather than raw power. "Are they friendly?" Kira whispered. Before anyone could answer, the sensors detected the unknown ships dropping out of hyperspace. They appeared on the visual display as 5 dark shapes moving in perfect formation. They were sleek and predatory-looking, built for speed and maneuverability. Commander Thex's face appeared on the screen again. His red eyes were wide with surprise as he looked at his own sensor readings. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," Thex demanded. "You are interfering with Scaleth Empire operations." Elena held her breath as she waited for a response. The command center was completely silent, except for the gentle humming of Harmony's crystal body and the quiet whisper of the air recycling systems. Then a new voice came over the communications channel. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, but the accent was unlike anything Elena had ever heard. The voice was calm and controlled, but there was something dangerous underneath it. "Scaleth vessels, you are in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Captain Rex Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, studying the strange transmission that had pulled his patrol fleet out of their routine mission. The message was clearly a distress signal, but the mathematical codes were unlike anything in Earth's databases. The universal constants were correct, which meant whoever sent this was definitely intelligent, but the source was completely unknown. Morrison was a veteran of the border wars, where human colonies had fought each other for resources and territory. His face carried scars from a plasma blast that had nearly killed him during the siege of New Marseille. He had seen enough war to last several lifetimes, but peace was a luxury that ship captains rarely enjoyed. "Lieutenant Torres, what do you make of this signal?" Morrison asked his tactical officer. Maya Torres looked up from her console. She was young, but sharp, one of the best tactical minds to graduate from Luna Military Academy. Her dark eyes reflected the glow of the sensor displays as she worked through the data. "The math checks out, sir. Definitely an intelligence trying to communicate. But listen to this." Torres played a section of the transmission through the bridge speakers. "These energy signatures don't match anything we know about. The ship sending this distress call is using technology we've never seen before." Morrison nodded slowly. "What about the threat they're facing?" Torres brought up a tactical display showing the Scalith fleet. 12 large vessels, sir. The computer analysis suggests they're military ships, but their design is strange. Massive hulls, powerful engines, but their weapon systems are primitive by our standards." "Primitive how?" Morrison asked. "Single large energy weapons on each ship, sir. No point defense systems. No missile launchers, no kinetic weapons at all. It's like they're designed to fight opponents who can't fight back." Morrison had seen bullies before. In the border wars, some colonial militias had used overwhelming force against civilian targets while avoiding real military engagements. These Scalith ships looked exactly like that kind of coward's fleet. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Davis from his station, "I've been analyzing the language in the distress signal. The computer has worked out a basic translation matrix. They're calling themselves part of something called the Galactic Cooperative." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Never heard of them. What else?" "The signal mentions peaceful research and asks for help from nearby military forces. They seem to think we're part of some kind of galactic peacekeeping organization." Morrison almost smiled at that. Humans had been alone in space for 300 years, expanding slowly and carefully from system to system. They had always assumed they would eventually meet alien life. But this was not how anyone had imagined first contact would happen. "Sir," Torres interrupted, "I'm reading weapons fire. The hostile fleet is firing on the research station." Morrison's expression hardened. He had spent his career protecting human civilians from raiders and pirates. The idea that someone was threatening innocent researchers, even alien ones, brought back all his old instincts. "Battle stations," Morrison ordered. "Signal the fleet. We're going in." Alarms sounded throughout the ship as the crew prepared for combat. In the Marine Bay, Sergeant Jake Peterson checked his squad's equipment. Peterson was a big man with hands, scarred from years of close combat fighting. His Marines were all volunteers from Earth's roughest neighborhoods and military units. "Listen up," Peterson told his squad. "We don't know what we're facing out there, but innocent people are in trouble. That's all we need to know." Private Lisa Chang, the squad's demolitions expert, looked up from her weapon. "Sarge, what if these aliens are hostile to us too?" "Then, we deal with that when it happens," Peterson replied. "Right now, someone is calling for help, and we're the only ones close enough to answer." On the bridge, Torres was running combat simulations based on the Scalith fleet composition. The results surprised her. "Captain, you need to see this," Torres said. "I've been analyzing their tactical formations and weapon placements. These ships are built to intimidate, not to fight a real space battle." Morrison joined her at the tactical station. "Explain." "Look at their positioning, sir. They're arranged for maximum visual impact, not tactical advantage. Their weapons are massive but slow to recharge. They have no screening formations, no overlapping fire patterns, no reserve units. It's like they've never fought anyone who could shoot back." Morrison studied the display. In his experience, anyone who had survived real combat learned to be careful and smart. These Scalith ships looked powerful but sloppy. What's their response time to changing threats? Morrison asked. Based on their current maneuvers, at least 3 minutes to change formation. Their ships are too big and unwieldy for quick tactical adjustments, Morrison nodded. 3 minutes was an eternity in space combat. Human ships were designed to change position and targeting in seconds. Sir, we're approaching the system, Davis announced. Do you want to try communication first? Morrison thought about it. The traditional protocol would be to announce themselves and attempt negotiation, but the research station was under attack right now. Every minute spent talking was a minute those civilians were in danger. Negative. We go in weapons hot. If they want to talk, they can do it after they stop shooting at civilians. The 5 human ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect attack formation. Morrison had trained his captains well. They moved like wolves, fast and coordinated, each ship covering the others while maintaining optimal firing positions. The Scaleth. Response was immediate and predictable. Commander Thex, surprised by the sudden appearance of unknown ships, tried to assert dominance through intimidation. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. You are interfering with Scaleth Empire operations. Morrison's voice was calm when he replied, but Torres could hear the steel underneath. Scaleth vessels, you are in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. On the main screen, they could see Thex's reaction. The alien commander's red eyes widened slightly, then narrowed with anger. You dare threaten the Scaleth Empire? Your 5 small ships against my fleet? I will crush you and add your wreckage to my collection. Thex cut the transmission and immediately ordered his flagship to fire on the Retribution. The massive plasma cannon that had been terrorizing the research station swiveled toward Morrison's ship and fired. The energy blast that could have destroyed a small moon struck the Retribution's deflector shields and dispersed harmlessly into space. Morrison's ship didn't even shake from the impact. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to pause. Then Torres spoke quietly. Sir, their most powerful weapon just bounced off our standard deflector grid. Morrison nodded. I see that. What does that tell us about their other weapons? That we might be more advanced than we thought, sir. Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Scaleth ships were huge and threatening, but they were also slow and primitive, like armored knights facing machine guns. All ships, weapons free, Morrison ordered. Target their weapon systems and engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Sir, Torres asked. If we're about to introduce humanity to galactic civilization, Lieutenant, I'd rather not do it by committing genocide. We disable their ability to fight, but we let them live to spread the word. Torres smiled grimly as she prepared the targeting solutions. Understood, sir. Teaching moment rather than massacre. Exactly. Now show them what human military engineering looks like. Sergeant Jake Peterson watched the tactical display in the Marine drop bay as the Scaleth weapons turned toward the research station. Around him, his squad checked their equipment one final time. The powered armor they wore was designed for the brutal realities of human warfare, tested in conflicts where mercy was a luxury that got good soldiers killed. Looks like these aliens just crossed a line, Peterson said to his Marines. Nobody threatens civilians on our watch. Private Chang loaded a fresh magazine into her assault rifle. Sarge, what's the plan if we have to board their ships? Peterson's scarred face showed no emotion. We follow standard breach protocol. Fast, loud, and extremely violent. These aliens obviously don't understand the difference between military targets and innocent people. Time to educate them. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Morrison felt something cold settle in his chest as he watched the Scaleth weapons pivot toward Harmony's light. In his years of military service, he had seen many types of enemies. Pirates, raiders, corrupt colonial militias. But threatening civilians was a line that changed everything. Lieutenant Torres, new targeting priorities, Morrison said quietly. Torres looked up from her tactical station. She had served under Morrison for 3 years and recognized the tone in his voice. The captain wasn't just angry, he was moving into the kind of cold fury that made human military officers truly dangerous. "Yes, sir? I want precision drone swarms prepped for immediate launch. Target every weapon system on every Scaleth ship simultaneously. I want their ability to threaten those civilians completely eliminated." Torres smiled grimly as she input the commands. "Drone swarms ready, sir. Shall I target their life support systems as well?" "Negative. We disable their weapons and engines, but we keep them alive. I want survivors to carry the message back to their empire." Morrison opened a channel to the other human ships. "All vessels, implement Protocol 7. Precision strikes only. No civilian casualties, but these aliens need to learn about consequences." The human fleet's response was swift and merciless. From the belly of each ship, dozens of small drones launched into space. They were no larger than human torsos, but each one carried exactly enough explosive power to disable a specific ship system without destroying the vessel entirely. Commander Thex watched his sensors as the swarm of small objects approached his fleet. His weapons officer tried to track them for point defense fire, but the drones moved in unpredictable patterns that made targeting impossible. "What are those things?" Thex demanded. "Unknown, sir. They're too small and fast for our targeting systems." "Wait. They're splitting up and heading for different ships." Each drone had been programmed with detailed schematics of Scaleth ship design, analyzed by the human tactical computers in the minutes since the battle began. They flew directly to their assigned targets with mechanical precision. The first wave struck the weapons systems. Thex felt his ship shudder as small explosions destroyed his remaining gun batteries. Similar detonations echoed across his other vessels as the humans systematically removed their ability to fight. But the humans weren't finished. The second wave of drones targeted communication arrays, sensor clusters, and navigation systems. Within minutes, the Scaleth fleet was blind, deaf, and helpless. Lieutenant Torres watched the tactical display with professional satisfaction. "All Scaleth weapons systems destroyed, sir. They retain life support and basic maneuvering only." Morrison nodded. "Open a channel." On the research station, Elena and her colleagues watched in stunned silence as the mysterious human ships completely neutralized the Scaleth threat. The level of precision was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Every strike had been calculated to disable without destroying, to remove the threat while preserving life. "Dr. Elena," Harmony chimed in her crystal voice, "these beings fight with surgical precision. They could have destroyed the Scaleth fleet completely, but they chose not to." Elena realized Harmony was right. The humans had demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority, but they had also shown remarkable restraint. They were warriors, but not monsters. Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, addressing Commander Thex directly. "Commander, Thex, your threat against civilians has been noted and dealt with. Your weapons are destroyed. Your ships are disabled. You have 2 choices now. You can surrender peacefully and return to your empire with a message, or we can demonstrate additional capabilities that you really don't want to see." Thex stared at his ruined bridge in complete defeat. His proud fleet lay in pieces around him. These unknown aliens had systematically dismantled 300 years of Scaleth military doctrine in less than 10 minutes. What are you?" Thex asked. "We are humans," Morrison replied. "And we have just placed this system and its inhabitants under our protection. Any future aggression against these people will be met with escalation you cannot imagine." Elena felt a chill at those words. The captain's tone suggested that what they had just witnessed was only a small demonstration of human capabilities. Before Thex could respond, new alerts sounded on both the research station and the human ships. Long-range sensors had detected multiple FTL signatures approaching the system, big ones. Dr. Webb checked the readings twice before announcing what he saw. "Incoming fleet, 50-plus vessels. Energy signatures match Scaleth Empire technology, but these ships are much larger than what we just faced. Torres ran the sensor data through her tactical computers. Captain, these new ships are showing different weapon signatures, planet killers, ship-to-ship combat systems. This is a real military fleet, not raiders. Morrison studied the display. The approaching Scaleth force was clearly their response to the distress calls from Thex's disabled ships. Someone in the Scaleth Empire had decided to send overwhelming, forced to deal with the unknown threat. "How long until they arrive?" Morrison asked. 3 hours, sir, Torres replied. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were good people. Veterans who had signed up to protect human colonies from pirates and raiders. Now they were facing a decision that would affect the entire galaxy. "Sir," Communications Officer Davis spoke up, "I'm receiving a transmission from the incoming fleet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it through." The main screen showed the bridge of a massive Scaleth battleship. The alien speaking was older than Thex, with scars covering his gray skin and medals indicating high rank. "I am Admiral. Orcs of the Scaleth Imperial Navy. Unknown vessels, you have attacked ships of the Scaleth Empire. This act of war will not be tolerated. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing 50 enemy ships approaching. Any sane military commander would consider retreat. His 5 ships were outnumbered 10-1, but Elena and the other researchers were still on that station. The wild whisper folk, the resonance, the Verdani, all the peaceful beings who had called for help. And now an entire Imperial fleet was coming to punish them for being rescued. Morrison made his decision. "Admiral Corks," Morrison replied, "you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or I will demonstrate why threatening civilians is a very bad idea when dealing with humans." On the research station, Elena watched the human ships take defensive positions around Harmony's light. 5 small vessels preparing to face an armada. "They're really going to fight," Elena whispered. 50 ships against 5. Kira floated beside her, the whisper folk's body trembling with fear and awe. Either they are insane, or they know something we don't. Elena looked at the approaching storm and realized that they were about to discover just how dangerous humans could be when someone threatened the people they had chosen to protect. Commander Thex stared at his tactical display in complete confusion. His most powerful plasma cannon, the weapon that had destroyed 3 planets during the conquest of the Rillan system, had struck the unknown ship directly. The energy blast should have vaporized the target and left nothing but glowing debris. Instead, the small ship continued moving in formation with its companions as if nothing had happened. "Weapons officer, report," Thex demanded. The young Scaleth officer's voice shook as he spoke. "Sir, sensors confirmed direct hit on target. The energy discharge was complete, but their ship shows no damage at all." Thex's forearms clenched into fists. In 300 years of conquest, no enemy had ever survived a direct hit from a Scaleth battle cannon. These unknown vessels were using technology that shouldn't exist. "Fire again. Full power. Target the same ship." "Sir, the cannon needs 4 minutes to recharge after a full power shot. 4 minutes. Thex realized that his massive weapons, designed to destroy planets and space stations, were too slow for ship-to-ship combat against fast-moving targets. The thought had never occurred to him before because no enemy had ever moved fast enough to matter. On the research station, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the scene unfold on the main display. The mysterious ships that had answered their distress call were smaller than the Scaleth vessels, but they moved with deadly grace. She could see weapon ports opening along their hulls, but these weren't the massive cannons she expected. "Webb, what kind of weapons are those?" Elena asked. Dr. Webb studied the sensor readings. "I don't understand these energy signatures. They look like kinetic systems, but the power output is enormous." Elena had never seen kinetic weapons in space combat. Every species in the Galactic Cooperative used energy-based systems. Kinetic weapons were considered primitive and inefficient for space warfare. The lead human ship transmitted again. The same calm voice that had warned the Scaleth now addressed them directly. Research Station Harmony's Light, this is Captain Morrison of the UES Retribution. Please move to a safe distance. We are about to engage the hostile fleet. Elena felt a strange mix of hope and terror. These unknown beings were here to help them, but the cold professionalism in the captain's voice suggested they were about to witness something unprecedented. All station personnel to emergency positions, Webb announced over the intercom. Prepare for combat! Captain Morrison watched his tactical display as the Scaleth ships tried to rotate their massive hulls to bring weapons to bear. Their movements were clumsy and predictable. Torres had been right about their response time. All ships, commence firing, Morrison ordered. What happened next changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about space combat. The human ships didn't fire single powerful blasts like every other military force in known space. Instead, they unleashed coordinated streams of kinetic projectiles. Hundreds of tungsten rounds accelerated to significant fractions of light speed poured from the human ship's railgun arrays. Each projectile was small, no larger than a human fist, but at relativistic speeds, they carried devastating kinetic energy. More importantly, the humans fired them in precisely calculated patterns designed to overwhelm defensive systems and target specific ship components. The lead Scaleth dreadnought, still recharging its main cannon, suddenly found itself under assault. From weapons it couldn't track or intercept. The projectiles struck its shields like a metal storm, each impact calculated to hit the same shield generators from multiple angles simultaneously. Commander Thex watched in horror as his flagship's defensive systems collapsed under the sustained barrage. Warning alarms screamed across his bridge as secondary explosions rippled through the ship's weapon systems. "Damage report!" Thex shouted. "Main cannon destroyed, sir. Forward shield generators offline. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. But the humans weren't finished. The second wave of projectiles targeted the ship's engines with surgical precision. Each round hit exactly where it would cause maximum damage to propulsion systems while avoiding life support areas. Within 90 seconds, the massive Scaleth dreadnought was drifting helplessly in space, its weapons destroyed and its engines dead. The other Scaleth ships tried to return fire, but their targeting systems couldn't lock onto the fast-moving human vessels. The aliens had designed their ships to fight enemies that stayed in one place, not opponents who moved like hunting predators. Lieutenant Torres coordinated the attack with cold efficiency. Her tactical computers had analyzed the Scaleth ship designs and identified every critical system. She assigned targets to each human ship and synchronized their fire to maximize damage while minimizing casualties. "Target the second dreadnought," Torres announced. "Focus fire on their weapon systems." The human ships moved in perfect coordination, each one taking a different angle of attack. Their combined firepower struck the second Scaleth ship like a precisely orchestrated symphony of destruction. Elena watched from the research station as the massive alien warships were systematically dismantled. The human ships were so much smaller, but they fought with a deadly intelligence that was terrifying to witness. "How are they doing this?" Elena whispered. Kira floated beside her, the Whisper Folk's thin body trembling with fear and awe. "They fight like apex predators," Kira whispered, "like hunters who have spent millions of years learning to kill." Dr. Webb was recording everything on the station's sensors. "Their tactical coordination is beyond anything I've ever seen. They're not just shooting randomly. Every shot is calculated for maximum effect." The third Scaleth ship tried a desperate maneuver, attempting to ram one of the human vessels. The alien dreadnought accelerated toward the UES Phantom, hoping to use its massive hull as a weapon. The human ship simply wasn't there when the Scaleth vessel arrived. It had calculated the attack vector seconds before the aliens committed to it and moved to a new position that gave it a perfect firing solution on the attacker's engines. Commander Thex finally understood what he was facing. These weren't the peaceful, negotiating species that the Scalith Empire usually conquered. These beings fought with a level of tactical sophistication that spoke of millions of years of warfare against equally intelligent opponents. "All ships fall back," Thex ordered. "Retreat to minimum safe distance." But retreat was no longer an option. The human ships had positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. The Scalith fleet was trapped in a perfectly executed tactical formation. Morrison's voice came over the communications channel again. "Commander Thex, your ships are disabled. Your weapons are destroyed. Surrender now and we will allow your crews to live." Thex looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was unconscious from the impacts. His ship's systems were failing one by one. In less than 5 minutes, these unknown aliens had reduced his mighty fleet to helpless wreckage. But Scalith pride would not allow surrender. Thex had one final card to play. "If you do not withdraw immediately," Thex transmitted, "I will order my remaining ships to target the research station. Your precious civilians will die!" The silence that followed was different from before. Elena could feel the change in the atmosphere. The humans had been professional and efficient in their attack on the military targets. Now there was something cold and angry in the air. Captain Morrison's response came in the same calm voice, but Elena could hear the steel underneath it. "Commander Thex, you have just made a very serious mistake." Admiral Orcs stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive battleship Dominion's Fist, as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velcara system. He had commanded Scalith forces for 60 years, crushing rebellion after rebellion across a dozen sectors. No enemy had ever survived contact with an Imperial battle fleet. The sensor readings confused him immediately. His advance force under Commander Thex should have easily conquered one small research station. Instead, Orcs found 12 disabled. Scalith ships drifting in space around the station, their hulls scarred but intact. The unknown enemy had defeated his forces without destroying them. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the unknown vessels are still in system. 5 ships much smaller than our forces. They appear to be protecting the research station." Orcs studied the tactical display. 5 tiny ships against his fleet of 50 battleships, dreadnoughts, and assault carriers. Either these aliens were insane, or they possessed technology beyond anything in Scalith databases. "Open communications," Orcs ordered. While the Scalith fleet prepared for battle, Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent the last 3 days learning about her mysterious rescuers. What she discovered both terrified and fascinated her. The beings who called themselves humans came from a world called Earth, and their history was a catalog of warfare that made Elena's blood run cold. They had spent their entire evolution fighting each other, their environment, and everything else on their hostile planet. "Kira, listen to this," Elena said to the Whisper folk as she read from her tablet. "Their planet has weather systems that can destroy cities. Predators that hunt in coordinated packs, natural disasters that would extinct most species, and the humans not only survived, they became the dominant species." Kira's thin body shivered. "No wonder they fight so well. Their entire world trained them for war." Elena continued reading. "They classify Earth as a class the death world. The computer says that's the highest danger rating possible. Most species wouldn't survive a single day there." Dr. Webb approached them with his own tablet. "Elena, you need to see their military history. They've been fighting wars for over 10,000 years. Wars between their own species, against their environment, against everything. They've developed tactical thinking that no other species has needed." Elena looked at the recordings of human battles throughout their history. The level of strategic complexity was staggering. Humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to send messages. They used psychological warfare, technological superiority, and raw determination in ways that peaceful species could never imagine. The captain was serious when he said this was just a demonstration, Elena realized. These 5 ships probably represent a tiny fraction of human military capability. Admiral Corks's transmission reached the human fleet right on schedule. Captain Morrison listened to the aliens' demands for surrender and felt the same cold anger that had driven him through the border wars. "Admiral Corks," Morrison replied, "you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or I will demonstrate why threatening civilians is a very bad idea when dealing with humans." Corks laughed, the sound echoing across the communication channel. 5. Ships against 50? You are either brave or foolish. I will give you one chance to surrender before I destroy you and everyone on that station. Morrison cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Gentlemen, we're about to make history. Not just human history, but galactic history. The question is what kind of history we want to make." Lieutenant Torres looked up from her tactical station. "Sir, I've been analyzing their fleet composition. Same problems as the advance force, but magnified. Big, slow, powerful ships designed to intimidate rather than fight a real battle." "What's our tactical assessment?" Morrison asked. "Honestly, sir, we could probably take them in a straight fight, but there's something else to consider." Torres brought up a new display. "These aren't just warships. Some of these vessels are troop transports, slave ships. I'm reading life signs from multiple species in their cargo holds." Morrison's expression darkened. The Scaleth weren't just conquerors, they were slavers. The ships approaching his position carried thousands of innocent beings destined for lives of servitude. "New objective," Morrison announced. "We don't just defeat this fleet. We liberate every slave ship in their formation." The human fleet began to move, and Admiral Corks got his first real look at how Deathworlders fought a space battle. The humans didn't charge forward in a glorious frontal assault like every other species in the galaxy. Instead, they used the system itself as a weapon. They accelerated toward Velcara Prime, using the massive gas giant's gravity well to slingshot kinetic projectiles at relativistic speeds. Corks watched in horror as chunks of space debris accelerated, by gravity and human technology, began impacting his ships at significant fractions of light speed. His shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against projectiles moving at those velocities. "Return fire," Corks ordered. "All ships, target the enemy vessels." But the humans weren't where his targeting systems expected them to be. They had calculated orbital mechanics and fleet positioning with mathematical precision that spoke of a species that had been fighting in space for centuries, not decades. The Scaleth fleet found itself divided and confused as human ships appeared. From unexpected vectors, fired precisely targeted salvos, and disappeared back into the maze of debris orbiting the gas giant. Lieutenant Torres coordinated the assault with the same cold efficiency she had shown before, but on a much larger scale. Her tactical computers identified not just military targets, but the slave ships hidden in the Scaleth formation. "Captain, I've located 17 vessels with civilian life signs, marking them as priority rescue targets." Morrison nodded. "Tag them for the Marine squads. Peterson's boys are going to have some boarding actions today." Sergeant Peterson and his squad had been preparing for exactly this scenario. Their drop pods were loaded and ready to launch at targets of opportunity. Human boarding tactics, developed during the brutal close-quarters fighting of the border wars, were about to be tested against alien opponents. The first Scaleth battleship to fall victim to human precision was the destroyer Blood Harvest. A coordinated barrage of kinetic projectiles, each one targeted at specific system nodes, reduced the massive ship to a drifting hulk in under 60 seconds. Admiral Corks realized he was facing something unprecedented. These humans fought like no species in known space. They used physics as a weapon, mathematics as a tactical advantage, and pure aggression in ways that made his trained warriors look like children. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead human vessel," Corks ordered. 20 Scaleth ships turned their massive weapons toward the UES Retribution. The combined firepower that followed would have vaporized a small moon. Morrison's ship wasn't there. When the energy blasts arrived, The humans had predicted the concentration of fire and moved to a position that gave them perfect firing solutions on all 20 attackers simultaneously. The return volley was devastating. Human weapons, designed for surgical precision rather than raw power, targeted the weapon systems and engines of every ship that had fired. Within minutes, a third of the Scaleth fleet was disabled and helpless. On the research station, Elena watched the battle unfold with growing amazement. The humans weren't just winning, they were rewriting the rules of space combat. Every assumption about military tactics that the galaxy had held for centuries was being systematically destroyed. They're not fighting to destroy, Elena realized. They're fighting to capture. They want those slave ships intact. Dr. Webb nodded as he watched the tactical display. Look at their targeting patterns. They're disabling military vessels while carefully avoiding damage to ships with civilian life signs. The level of precision required for that is beyond anything we thought possible. The first boarding action began when Peterson's drop pod slammed into the hull of a Scaleth slave ship. The Marines moved through the alien vessel like ghosts, their powered armor allowing them to operate in zero gravity and hostile environments. Peterson found the slave quarters and his heart hardened at what he saw. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species, locked in cages barely large enough for their bodies. Some were barely alive after months or years of captivity. Control, this is Peterson. We've got civilians down here who need immediate medical attention. Some of these people have been here for a very long time. Morrison's voice came back over the comm. Copy that, Sergeant. Secure the ship and prepare for medical evacuation. We're sending corpsmen to your location. The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Scaleth Empire had brought overwhelming force to crush 5 small ships, and instead found themselves completely outmatched by an enemy that fought with a level of tactical sophistication they couldn't comprehend. When the fighting ended, Admiral Corks found himself alone on the bridge of his crippled flagship. His fleet was scattered and broken, his weapons destroyed, his reputation in ruins. But he was alive, and that fact terrified him more than death would have. Morrison's transmission was calm and professional when it came. Admiral Corks, your fleet is defeated. Your slave ships have been liberated. Your military vessels are disabled but intact. You will return to your empire and deliver a message for us. The emergency alarm screamed across the void of space. Its automated distress call reached far into the darkness between star systems with growing fear. On the bridge of the Galactic Monitoring Station, Theta 7, Communications Officer Vextal watched the incoming message with worry filling his 4 hearts. The message was simple but scary. This is Captain Horan of the Alterian merchant vessel Dawn's Promise. We are under attack by Ravager pirates. Our shields are breaking down. Engines are damaged. Anyone hearing this message, please help us. We have families aboard, including children. Our location is attached. Time is running out. Vextal's 4. Arms moved quickly across the control panels. The Alterians were a peaceful people, known throughout the galaxy for their farm exports and wise teachings. They had no military fleet, no weapons beyond basic protection systems. Against the feared Ravager pirates, they were helpless victims. Sir, Vextal called to Station Commander Krell, the nearest Galactic Defense Patrol is 3 solar cycles away. The merchant vessel will not survive that long. Krell's crystal-like features grew dark with anger. The Galactic Council's peacekeeping forces were spread too thin across the Outer Rim territories. Pirates had grown bolder in recent months, knowing help would come too late. Send the distress signal on all emergency channels, Krell ordered. Maybe a trading vessel with escort fighters is nearby. As the message spread across the communication networks, it reached the edge of a sector most galactic citizens avoided. The Sol system, Earth, home of the species that others spoke about in quiet, fearful voices, Deathworlders. Captain Marcus Reed stood in the command center of the UES Vindication, looking at patrol reports when the emergency signal reached their receivers. His weathered face, marked by scars from battles across the galaxy, studied the transmission data. "Captain," called Lieutenant Torres from the communication station, "we are receiving a civilian distress call. Altarian merchant vessel under pirate attack. About 4 light hours from our current position." Reed's jaw became tight. He had met Altarians before during diplomatic missions. Gentle beings who could not understand the violence that troubled the galaxy's frontier regions. "How many ships do the pirates have?" "First scans suggest a full Ravager hunting pack, sir. At least 8 combat vessels, possibly more." Around the bridge, the human crew looked at each other. They all knew the reputation of Ravager pirates. Cruel, heavily armed, and many in number. Most species thought they were too dangerous to fight directly. "Sir," said Navigator Kim carefully, "fleet rules suggest we report this to Galactic Defense and continue our patrol route. We are just one ship." Reed turned to face his crew, his eyes showing a determination that had been forged in the fire of humanity's rise among the stars. "The Altarians helped us during the colony plague outbreaks on New Geneva. They saved thousands of our people." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Besides, we are not just any ship." He turned on the ship-wide communications. "All hands, this is the captain. We have civilians under attack by pirates. I know what the numbers look like on paper. But we did not come out here to play it safe. We came here to make sure innocent people do not suffer while officials debate response plans." The crew's agreement echoed through the corridors of the Vindication. Throughout the ship, humans began preparations for combat with a skill that would have terrified other species. They checked weapons, powered defensive systems, and plotted intercept courses with the casual expertise of apex predators preparing. "For a hunt. Set course for the Altarian vessel," Reed commanded. "Maximum burn, and get me a tactical assessment of those pirates." As the Vindication changed course and sped toward the distant battle, its crew had no way of knowing they were about to become the first chapter in a legend that would spread across the galaxy. A legend about the day the Deathworlders answered a call for help. In the depths of space, the Altarian ship Dawn's Promise continued its desperate flight, its hull broken in multiple places, life support failing. Captain Horan held tight to his command chair as another pirate torpedo exploded nearby, the shock wave shaking his dying ship. "Any response to our distress call?" he asked his communications officer, though hope was leaving his voice. "Sir," came the reply, filled with disbelief, "we are receiving a response. It is from a human vessel. They say they are coming." Horan's expression changed from despair to confusion. Humans? The Deathworlders were coming. He was not sure if that meant rescue or simply a different kind of doom. Behind them, the pirate fleet moved closer, their commanders already arguing over how to divide the stolen goods. None of them had listened to the emergency channels. None of them knew what was coming. The galaxy was about to remember why even pirates feared the species from the third planet of Sol. The Vindication moved through hyperspace like a bullet fired from the gun of an angry god. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Martinez pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, knowing that every second could mean the difference between rescue and tragedy. "Captain," reported Sensor Operator Davis, "I am reading massive energy signatures from the pirate vessels. They are preparing for a final assault on the merchant ship." Reed's hands clenched into fists. The pirates were done playing with their prey. They were moving in for the kill. "Time to intercept?" 90 seconds, sir. Not fast enough." Reed activated the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. "All hands, prepare for emergency deceleration. We are going in hot." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Emergency deceleration from hyperspace was dangerous under the best circumstances. Doing it in the middle of a combat zone was close to suicide, but they had learned to trust their captain's instincts, no matter how crazy his plans seemed. The Vindication dropped out of hyperspace like a meteor falling from heaven. Warning alarms screamed as the ship's inertial dampeners struggled to handle the violent transition. But they held, and suddenly the human warship was among the pirates like a wolf among sheep. "All weapons. Target the nearest raider," Reed ordered. "Show them. What happens when they threaten the innocent?" The first pirate ship exploded before its captain even realized the humans had arrived. The second managed to turn its guns toward the Vindication before it too became an expanding cloud of debris and fire. "This is impossible," screamed Warlord Thax from the lead pirate vessel. "How can one ship move so fast? How can their weapons be so powerful?" His tactical officer, staring at readings that made no sense, could only shake his head in fear. "Sir, they are not fighting like any species we have encountered. They are not trying to disable us or force surrender. They are trying to kill us, all." And indeed, the humans were showing no mercy. Captain Reed had seen the scans of the Alterian vessel, had counted the hull breaches and the failing life support. These pirates had been torturing their victims, drawing out their deaths for entertainment. Such cruelty demanded a response in kind. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to let evil triumph while they drew breath. 3 days after the Vindication's encounter with the Ravager pirates, every major news network in the galaxy was broadcasting footage of the battle. The combat recordings, transmitted by the grateful Alterians, showed scenes that defied normal understanding of space warfare. In the gleaming spires of the Galactic Council headquarters on Centros Prime, Defense Minister Korth watched the footage for the 7th time, his tentacles moving with nervous energy. Around the emergency session table, representatives from a dozen species sat in stunned silence. "Replay the sequence from timestamp 4 minutes 12 seconds, requested Admiral Zenth of the Crystalline Hegemony. Once again, they watched the human ship execute impossible maneuvers while systematically destroying an enemy force twice its size. The clinical precision with which the humans had dismantled the pirate formation was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. "The energy readings from their weapons," muttered Science Advisor Velk, his compound eyes reflecting the display's glow. "They should not be possible with normal plasma technology." "And their ship," added Admiral Zenth. "The acceleration patterns show inertial dampening systems far beyond our current capabilities." Defense Minister Korth raised a primary appendage for silence. "The immediate question is not their technology, but their intentions. For decades, we have maintained minimal contact with Earth and its colonies. We have treated them as an isolated curiosity, a species too dangerous for standard diplomatic protocols." He gestured toward the battle footage. "We may have made a critical error in judgment." Across the galaxy, the pirate networks were in chaos. The Bloodclaw Syndicate, largest of the criminal organizations, had called an emergency meeting on the asteroid base of Fallen Rock. Representatives from 37 pirate clans gathered in the reinforced meeting chamber, their usual boldness replaced by genuine fear. "8 ships!" growled Overlord Krex, his scarred hide bearing testament to decades of violent conflict. 8 ships destroyed in 4 minutes. The humans did not just defeat Thax's hunting pack, they obliterated it. "The survivors' reports are inconsistent," offered Captain Giles of the Void Reapers. "Some claim the human ship was impossibly fast. Others insist their weapons could penetrate any shield. The testimonies contradict each other." "Because they saw what their minds could not process," interrupted a new voice from the chamber's shadows. The assembled pirates turned to see Xerok the Ancient, eldest of their kind, emerging from the darkness. His cybernetic implants glowed with evil light as he hobbled to the center of the gathering. "I am old enough to remember the first reports of humans entering galactic space," he rasped. Their colony ships moved through hegemony space without stopping for inspection. When challenged, they politely declined to be boarded. When threatened, they simply vanished. He activated a holographic display showing historical records. Later, we learned their ships had stealth capabilities that made them invisible to our sensors. They had been studying us, mapping our territories, learning our weaknesses, all while we dismissed them as primitives from a backwater world, the A. Chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "You are suggesting they have been preparing for this?" asked Overlord Krex. "I am stating they have been at war since the day they left their homeworld," Zarok replied. "Every human ship is a warship. Every human colony is a fortress. Every human citizen is a soldier. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. They survived by becoming the ultimate predators." Meanwhile, aboard the Vindication, Captain Reed was reviewing damage reports when an urgent transmission arrived from Earth Fleet Command. The message was brief but significant. "Captain Reed, you are ordered to report to Starbase Phoenix for debriefing. Admiral Hassan will be conducting a full review of your engagement with hostile forces." Reed sighed, knowing that his impromptu intervention would have political consequences far beyond the rescue of one merchant vessel. Earth's government had been carefully managing humanity's integration into galactic society, avoiding actions that might provoke fear or hostility from other species. His unauthorized engagement with the pirates had just shattered that delicate, diplomatic balance. "Sir," Commander Walsh approached with a datapad, "we are receiving communications from 17 different news organizations requesting interviews. Also, the Altarian government has officially nominated you for their highest civilian honor. And I suppose Earth Command is thrilled about all this attention?" Walsh's expression answered that question without words. But the galaxy's attention had already shifted beyond diplomatic concerns. In the merchant guilds, trading houses, and civilian colonies throughout the Outer Rim, a new hope was emerging. For the first time in decades, the innocent had protectors who would not abandon them to bureaucratic delays or political calculations. On the farming world of New Harvest, Colony Administrator Beth looked up at the stars with new understanding. "The children asked me today if the stories about humans fighting monsters were true," she told her husband over dinner. "I told them yes, but I never mentioned that we are the humans in those stories." Her husband nodded thoughtfully. "The galaxy is about to learn what we have always known. Humans do not abandon their own, and now, apparently, we do not abandon anyone who calls for help." In the depths of space, other human ships had received new orders. The fleet was mobilizing, not for conquest or expansion, but for something far more dangerous to the galaxy's existing power structures. They were mobilizing to protect the innocent. The implications would reshape the balance of power across known space. And every government, criminal organization, and military force was beginning to realize that the universe had just become a much more dangerous place for those who preyed upon the weak. News anchor Veltar of the Galactic Broadcasting Network concluded her special report with words that would be remembered for generations. "Today, we witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A single vessel from Earth, acting without official authorization, engaged and destroyed an entire pirate fleet to protect civilian lives. The question facing every species in known space is simple. What does this mean for the future of Galactic? Security?" Her co-anchor, a respected military analyst, provided the answer that chilled rulers throughout civilized space. "It means the age of unchecked piracy is over. The humans have declared themselves protectors of the innocent, and based on what we saw today, they have the capability to enforce that declaration." In the executive offices of major shipping corporations, emergency meetings were being called. Trade routes that had been considered too dangerous were suddenly viable again. Insurance rates for merchant vessels began dropping as Lloyds of Alpha. Centauri recalculated risk assessments based on human naval capabilities. But in the halls of power, darker discussions were taking place. Some species saw opportunity in humanity's revealed strength, hoping to forge alliances with these unexpected guardians. Others saw threat, wondering if the same ships that protected merchants today might conquer worlds tomorrow. Captain Reed, unaware of the political earthquake his actions had triggered, stood on the observation deck of the Vindication, watching the Alterian ship Dawn's Promise complete its journey to safety. The grateful captain had invited Reed's crew to visit their homeworld, to see the faces of the families they had saved. It was a reminder of why humanity had come to the stars in the first place. Not for conquest or glory, but to ensure that no innocent being would ever face the darkness alone. The galaxy was changing, and at the center of that change was a species that had learned long ago that the only way to survive in a hostile universe was to become more dangerous than anything it could throw at you. But they had also learned something equally important. True strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction was necessary to protect the innocent. The Vindication dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the combat zone, its sensors immediately painting a tactical picture that would have made any other species retreat. 8 Ravager vessels surrounded the limping Alterian merchant ship, like wolves circling wounded prey. Captain Reed studied the display, his mind automatically calculating angles, speeds, and weapon ranges with the natural precision that had kept him alive through dozens of battles. "Tactical analysis, Commander Walsh," he ordered. His first officer, a veteran of the Centauri border wars, highlighted the enemy formation on the main screen. 4 heavy raiders, 2 torpedo boats, and 2 interceptors. The Alterian shields are down to 8%. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Time until the merchant vessel's life support fails? 18 minutes, sir. Reed nodded grimly. The pirates were taking their time, enjoying the hunt. It was about to cost them everything. Battle stations. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. Target the lead raider first. Throughout the ship, warning. Sirens echoed as the crew moved with practiced skill. In the weapon bays, Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez checked the main plasma cannons while his teams loaded the torpedo tubes with humanity's latest advancement in ship-killing technology. The Ravager pirates finally noticed the approaching human ship, their communications channels filling with confused chatter. Most had never fought humans in battle. They knew the reputation, of course, but reputation and reality often differed. "Human vessel," came the transmission from the lead pirate ship, its captain's voice full of arrogance. "This is Warlord Thax of the Crimson Fang. Leave immediately or share the fate of these weak merchants." Reed's response was transmitted on open channels, making sure the Alterians would hear it too. "This is Captain Reed of the United Earthship Vindication. You have exactly 30 seconds to stop your attack and leave, or we will use deadly force." Laughter echoed from the pirate. Channels. 8 ships against 1 seemed like impossible odds to any reasonable species. They had forgotten that humans were not reasonable when innocent lives were at stake. 30 seconds have passed," Reed announced to his bridge crew. "All weapons free. Show them what Deathworlders do to bullies." The Vindication opened fire with a fury that broke all rules of normal naval combat. Instead of keeping safe distance and fighting a long exchange, the human ship sped directly toward the enemy formation, its guns blazing. The lead Ravager raider exploded in a brilliant flash as concentrated plasma fire overwhelmed its shields and tore through its hull. The debris cloud had not even finished expanding before the Vindication was already targeting the second vessel. "Impossible!" Warlord Thax snarled as he watched one of his ships die in seconds. "All vessels, focus fire on the human ship. Kill them!" But the Vindication was not where the pirates expected it to be. Captain Reed had ordered a combat maneuver that broke every rule of safe space navigation. His ship dove below the orbital plane, using the merchant vessel as cover while launching a spread of torpedoes that curved around to strike the pirates from an unexpected angle. 2 more Ravager ships erupted in flame as the human torpedoes found their targets. The remaining pirates, suddenly finding themselves outnumbered by their single opponent, began to panic. Aboard the Dawn's Promise, Captain Horan watched the battle unfold with a mixture of terror and amazement. The human ship moved like a living creature, dancing between enemy fire with impossible grace, while dealing death with surgical precision. "By the ancient stars," whispered his navigation officer, "they are not just fighting the pirates. They are hunting them." The Vindication had closed to point-blank range with another raider, her guns tearing through armor plating that should have required sustained bombardment to penetrate. Human weapons, it seemed, had been designed by minds that understood the necessity of overwhelming firepower. "Captain," Lieutenant Torres called out, "2 interceptors are breaking off and heading for the merchant vessel." Reed's eyes narrowed. The pirates were trying to take hostages, to force the humans to stop their attack. It was a reasonable tactical decision. It was also a fatal mistake. "Helm, ramming course for the lead interceptor. Engine room, give me everything we have." "Sir," Commander Walsh said carefully, "our shields will not survive a direct collision. They will if we time it right. Weapons, prepare the forward lance. Single shot, maximum power." The bridge crew looked at each other but carried out their orders without question. They had learned to trust their captain's instincts, no matter how impossible his plan seemed. The Vindication screamed toward the interceptor on what appeared to be a suicidal collision course. At the last possible second, Reed ordered the lance fired at point-blank range. The concentrated energy beam punched through the interceptor's shields and hull like a spear through paper, and the human ship rolled aside as the enemy vessel exploded. The second interceptor, seeing its companion's fate, tried to flee. It did not make it past the Vindication's torpedo spread. In less than 4 minutes, the human ship had reduced 8 pirate vessels to expanding debris clouds. The few surviving pirates in damaged escape pods transmitted frantic surrender signals, their earlier arrogance replaced by primal terror. "This is Captain Reed to all Ravager survivors. You will broadcast the following message on all pirate frequencies. The merchants, the innocents, the peaceful traders of this galaxy are under human protection now. Attack them, and we will find you. We will hunt you, and we will show you what it means to anger a Deathworlder." As the Vindication moved to help the damaged Altarian vessel, Captain Horan found his voice. "Human ship, this is Captain Horan. We cannot properly express our thanks. You saved us all." Reed's response came with a warmth that seemed impossible, from someone who had just orchestrated the destruction of 8 warships. "Just doing our job, Captain. Every innocent life is worth protecting. Let's get your ship fixed and your people safe." But across the galaxy, the surviving pirates were already transmitting panicked reports. The Deathworlders had entered the game, and the rules had just changed forever. Medical Officer Blake worked alongside the Altarian ship's doctor, treating the wounded with gentle efficiency. The Altarian children, no longer crying in terror, watched the humans with wide eyes full of wonder rather than fear. "Are you really from the Death World?" asked a small Altarian girl, her voice barely above a whisper. Blake smiled as he bandaged her minor injuries. "We are from Earth, yes, but we are not here to bring death. We are here to stop it." The girl's parents exchanged glances of amazement. They had heard the stories, the whispered tales of the savage species from the 3rd planet of Sol. They had never imagined these terrifying warriors could be so gentle with children. As repair crews worked to restore the Dawn's promise to spaceworthiness, Captain Reed stood in his ready room composing his report to Earth Command. He knew that his actions would have consequences far beyond this single rescue operation. For 30 years, humanity had maintained a careful balance in galactic politics. They had been strong enough to defend themselves, but careful not to appear threatening to other species. That delicate equilibrium had just been shattered by 4 minutes of combat footage that would soon be broadcast across every news network in known space. But as Reed looked at the visual display showing Altarian families reunited with their children, he felt no regret. Some things were more important than political balance. Some principles were worth any cost. The legend was only beginning. Admiral Hassan's weathered features reflected the weight of command as she studied the holographic display in the secure briefing room of Starbase Phoenix. Before her, representatives from Earth's most elite military units stood at attention, their expressions grim but determined. "The situation has escalated beyond our projections," she began, highlighting sectors across the galactic map where red indicators pulsed ominously. Intelligence reports indicate massive pirate mobilizations in 12 systems. They are calling it the Great Hunt, a coordinated effort to eliminate human presence before we can establish a broader protective network. Captain Reed, newly arrived for his debriefing, studied the tactical display with growing concern. "What is their estimated strength, Admiral?" "Over 200 vessels, ranging from raiders to converted battle cruisers. They have united 5 major syndicates under a single command structure. This is not random piracy anymore, Marcus. This is war." Major Elena Vasquez of the Marine Expeditionary Force stepped forward. "Ma'am, what is our response protocol? Are we maintaining the diplomatic containment strategy?" Admiral Hassan's smile was sharp as a blade. The diplomatic containment strategy died the moment Captain Reed's action footage hit the galactic news. Networks. Half the Galactic Council wants to impose sanctions on us for excessive military response, while the other half is quietly requesting security partnerships. She manipulated the display, showing shipping lanes throughout the outer rim territories. Meanwhile, merchant traffic has increased 40% in sectors where human ships patrol. The economic implications alone have forced our hand. "So we are abandoning the low-profile approach?" asked Commander Walsh. "We are embracing what we have always been," Hassan replied. "Protectors, not just of humanity, but of anyone who asks for our help. The galaxy wanted to see what Deathworlders could do. We are about to show them." She activated a new layer on the display, revealing the positions of humanity's hidden fleet assets. The assembled officers gasped as dozens of previously unknown vessels appeared across the map. "For 30 years we have been building and preparing. Every exploration vessel carried enough firepower to level a city. Every research station was actually a forward operating base. Every civilian colony has been training militia forces in their spare time." Captain Reed felt a chill of understanding. "We have been preparing for this moment since first contact." "Exactly. Our ancestors survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, and predators that could tear through steel. They did not do it by hoping for mercy from a hostile universe. They did it by becoming more dangerous than anything that threatened them." The Admiral highlighted specific fleet positions. "Task Force Omega will establish patrol routes through the merchant shipping lanes. Task Force Delta will hunt down pirate strongholds in the Broken Worlds region. Task Force Alpha—" She paused, her expression becoming predatory. "Task Force Alpha will demonstrate what happens when you threaten civilians under human protection." Light years away, in the fortress asteroid of Bloodmaw Station, the largest gathering of pirates in galactic history was reaching a crescendo of bloodthirsty enthusiasm. Warlord Supreme Gorthak, recently elected leader of the Unified Syndicates, addressed the assembled fleet commanders with savage glee. "The humans showed their hand too early," he roared, his augmented voice echoing through the chamber. "One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot protect the entire outer rim. We will strike simultaneously at 17 merchant convoys, forcing them to spread their forces thin. Then we will converge on their patrol vessels and destroy them piecemeal." The assembled pirates cheered, their battle lust ignited by dreams of plunder and revenge. They had convinced themselves that human success was due to technological superiority alone, not tactical brilliance or warrior spirit. It was a fatal miscalculation. Intelligence analyst Rodriguez studied the intercepted communications from pirate networks, her expression growing more concerned with each decoded message. "Admiral, they are not just planning random attacks. This is a sophisticated military operation designed to test our response capabilities." "Explain," Hassan ordered. "They are going to hit multiple targets simultaneously, forcing us to spread our forces. Then they will concentrate their full strength against isolated human vessels. It is actually a sound strategy. If we were any other species, Hassan replied, with grim satisfaction. But they have made a fundamental error in their calculations. She activated another layer of the holographic display, showing communication networks that had been invisible moments before. They assume we think like them, that we prioritize our own survival over the mission. They cannot comprehend a species that values the lives of strangers above their own safety. The assembled officers watched as Hassan outlined humanity's response strategy. It was audacious, risky, and completely insane by conventional military standards. It was also thoroughly, unmistakably human. "We are not going to spread our forces to defend against their attacks," she announced. "We are going to let them make their move. Then we are going to hunt down every single one of their bases and eliminate them permanently." Colonel Martinez of the Special Operations Command raised a hand. "Admiral, the civilian casualties could be enormous if we allow the initial attacks to proceed." "Which is why we are not going to allow them to proceed," Hassan replied. "We are going to be waiting for them." She manipulated the display again, showing predicted attack vectors and defensive positions. "Our intelligence networks have been more successful than the pirates realize. We know when and where they plan to strike. We will be there first." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity was not just going to defend against the pirate offensive. They were going to turn it into a trap. "Questions?" Hassan asked. Captain Reed raised his hand. "Admiral, what about the Galactic Council? They are already concerned about our military capabilities. This operation will reveal the true extent of human naval strength." "The time for hiding is over, Marcus. The galaxy has seen what one human ship can do. Now they are going to see what humanity can do when we stop pulling our punches." She gestured toward the tactical display. "Every species in known space is watching. Every government, every military force, every criminal organization. They are all asking the same question. What are the humans really capable of?" Her smile was cold and determined. "We are about to give them a very comprehensive answer." As the briefing concluded and officers dispersed to their commands, Admiral Hassan remained in the briefing room, studying the galactic map. Aide-de-camp Thompson approached with updated intelligence reports. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender offers from 3 minor pirate factions. They claim they want no part of the Great Hunt. Accept their surrenders and offer them amnesty in exchange for intelligence on the major syndicates," Hassan ordered. "And Thompson?" "Yes, Admiral. Make sure they understand that this offer expires the moment the first civilian vessel is attacked. After that, there will be no mercy for anyone who has preyed upon the innocent." As Thompson left to carry out her orders, Hassan reflected on the path that had led humanity to this moment. For generations, they had been the galaxy's outcasts, feared and avoided by civilized species who could not understand how anything could survive on a death world. Now those same species were about to learn that survival on Earth had not made humans savage. It had made them protectors. And the galaxy was about to discover what happened when you threatened those under the protection of Earth's children. The storm was gathering, and at its center stood a species that had learned long ago that the only way to ensure peace was to be prepared for war. The first phase of the pirate offensive began with coordinated strikes across 17 star systems. Merchant convoys found themselves surrounded by raiders emerging from hyperspace, their desperate distress calls flooding communication networks throughout the galaxy. But this time, the pirates' victims were not alone. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Commander Brooks from the bridge of the UES Retribution. "Civilian freighter under attack. 3 hostile vessels." Captain Alexandra Stone watched her tactical display with the calm expression of a veteran warrior. "Time to intercept?" 4 minutes, Captain. Too long. Deploy the Valkyrie squadrons. Let's show these pirates how human fighter craft perform in actual combat. Throughout the ship, Launch bays opened like the mouths of sleeping giants. Sleek fighters that had never been seen by non-human eyes streaked into space, their pilots eager to test years of training against real enemies. The pirates attacking. The freighter Golden Harvest were still celebrating their easy prey when death arrived on silver wings. The human fighters moved with inhuman precision, their weapon systems cutting through pirate shields as if they were not there. "What are those?" screamed the pirate captain as his companions' ships died around him. "How are they so fast?" He never received an answer. The lead Valkyrie pilot, Captain Jake Morrison, ended the engagement with a torpedo that turned the pirate command ship into an expanding cloud of superheated gas. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human task forces revealed capabilities that defied every assumption about their military strength. The pirates had expected to face individual patrol ships. Instead, they encountered battle groups that had been pre-positioned based on predictive algorithms that seemed to read their minds. Aboard the command dreadnought Indomitable, Admiral Hassan monitored 17 simultaneous engagements, watching as her forces systematically dismantled the largest pirate offensive in galactic history. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "all primary targets neutralized. Enemy casualties 97%. Our losses 0 ships, minimal damage. To 3 vessels." Hassan nodded grimly. The pirates had made the classic mistake of confusing individual capability with strategic power. They had seen one human ship perform impossible feats and assumed that was the extent of human military strength. They had never considered that humanity might have been deliberately underestimating their own capabilities for decades. "Signal to all task forces," she ordered. "Initiate Phase 2. Find their bases. End this threat permanently." But the true shock was only beginning. As human fleets systematically traced fleeing pirates to their strongholds, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented: coordinated assaults on fortifications that had been considered impregnable for centuries. The siege of Bloodmaw Station lasted exactly 18 minutes. Human ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. The station's massive defensive arrays, built into the asteroid's rocky surface, opened fire with enough concentrated energy to vaporize entire fleets. The humans did not try to avoid the defensive fire. They flew directly through it. "Impossible," whispered Warlord Supreme Gorthak as he watched human vessels absorb punishment that should have destroyed them. "No shields can withstand that much firepower." His tactical advisor, studying sensor readings with increasing horror, provided the answer. "Sir, they are not using conventional shields. Their hulls, they are absorbing and redirecting the energy, somehow. And sir—" "What?" "They are accelerating. The more we shoot at them, the faster they move." The human ships struck Bloodmaw Station like hammers forged from collapsed stars. Their weapons, finally revealed at full power, carved through the asteroid fortress as if it were made of soft clay rather than reinforced metal and stone. When the bombardment ceased, the most feared pirate stronghold in known space had been reduced to drifting debris and emergency escape pods. Gorthak, barely alive in his command pod's life support, transmitted a desperate message on all frequencies. "All pirate fleets, all independent raiders, hear me. Abandon all operations. Withdraw to deep space. The humans are not what we thought they were." But his warning came too late. Across the galaxy, human task forces were systematically eliminating every pirate base, every raider fleet, every criminal organization that had preyed upon innocent traders and colonists. On Centros Prime, the Galactic Council watched the proceedings in stunned silence. In 6 hours, humanity had accomplished what their combined military forces had failed to achieve in 3 decades. "Defense Minister?" asked the Council President, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are our strategic analysts saying about human capabilities?" Korth's response came with the tone of someone delivering a terminal diagnosis. They are saying we never understood what we were dealing with. The humans were not hiding their military strength to avoid frightening us. They were hiding it because they knew once we saw it, we would realize we had been living at their sufferance all along. He activated a holographic display showing human fleet movements. Every human civilian vessel we have encountered has been armed. Every human colony has defensive capabilities equivalent to military bases. Every human citizen has received combat training. You are suggesting, I am stating that Earth has been preparing for war since the day they achieved faster-than-light travel. Not war against any specific enemy, but against the concept of threat itself. They have built a military force capable of protecting not just humanity, but every peaceful species in the galaxy. As if to emphasize his point, reports flooded in of human ships arriving at colonies and trade routes throughout civilized space, their captains broadcasting simple messages. This sector is now under human protection. Any vessel with hostile intent will be engaged and destroyed. Captain Reed, aboard the Vindication as it established patrol routes through the Alterian trade network, received a transmission from Admiral Hassan. Marcus, I want you to know that your unauthorized engagement started something we cannot stop. The galaxy has seen what we are capable of. There is no going back to hiding in the shadows. Reed looked out at the stars, thinking of the grateful faces of the Alterian crew members they had saved. Maybe it is time we stopped hiding, Admiral. Maybe it is time the galaxy learned that some species evolved to protect rather than prey. Agreed. And Captain? Yes, Admiral? Every merchant captain, every peaceful colony, every innocent civilian in known space is broadcasting the same message. They are saying the Deathworlders answered their call for help. They are saying humanity keeps its promises. The final phase of the operation concluded with a sight that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Human ships, their hulls, still glowing from recent combat, formed protective formations around merchant convoys and civilian installations. The message was clear and unmistakable. The age of unchecked piracy was over. In the salvage yards of former pirate bases, human engineering teams worked alongside grateful civilian volunteers to convert weapons facilities into hospitals and schools. The transformation was symbolic of humanity's intentions. They had not come to conquer or dominate, but to heal and protect. News correspondent Talvera of the Intergalactic Press Corps concluded her special report from the former Bloodmaw station. Today marks the end of an era and the beginning of another. The pirate syndicates that terrorized peaceful commerce for generations have been swept away in a single coordinated operation. But perhaps more importantly, the galaxy has learned that Earth's children do not make empty promises. When they say they will protect the innocent, they mean it. The economic implications were staggering. Trade routes that had been abandoned for decades suddenly became viable again. Colonial expansion resumed as settlers realized they would not be abandoned to face threats alone. The galaxy's economy began a period of growth unprecedented in recorded history. But the true victory was measured in smaller numbers: children who could sleep without fear, families who could pursue honest trade without worrying about pirates, scientists who could explore dangerous sectors knowing that help was always nearby. Captain Reed stood on the observation deck of the Vindication, watching a convoy of Alterian merchants pass through what had once been the most dangerous sector, in known space. The ships flew without escort, their captains confident that human patrols would respond to any threat. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Torres, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead merchant vessel. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was warm with gratitude. "This is Captain Horan of the Dawn's promise to all human vessels in this sector. On behalf of the Alterian Merchant Guild, we want you to know that your sacrifice has not gone unnoticed. Our children ask about you in their prayers, and our poets sing songs of the day the Deathworlders became our guardians." Reed smiled, thinking of how the galaxy had changed in just a few short weeks. Tell Captain Horan that it is our honor to serve, and remind him that he does not need to thank us. Protecting the innocent is not a favor we do for others. It is who we are." As the transmission ended, Reed reflected on the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto throughout known space. When civilizations called for aid, when the weak needed protection,